All right, we will go ahead and call the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. We have all three commissioners here, Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Hall, and myself, so we do have a quorum. First is our adoption of the consent calendar. These are routine items, but either staff or commissioners can pull an item for further information, discussion, review, etc. Is there anything anybody would like to further review or pull from the consent calendar?
Madam Chair, I would just comment on our special road district appointment, and we are getting caught up on those. So appreciate Skylar helping out with that. It's getting closer.
All right. With that, I'm happy to make a motion for adoption of today's consent calendar as presented.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hall. Yeah. Yeah, I almost said Hunt there for a minute.
Yeah, you hang around for 37 years and you think you've become part of the furniture. Maybe that's the challenge. So,
do I have a second?
I shall second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. No public hearings today, no decision action items. So next we're moving into discussion and information. Update of Lincoln County personnel roles presented by our HR director.
Good morning, Chair Jacobson, Commissioners. For the record, I'm David Collier, Human Resources Director for Lincoln County. So before you have three changes to the Lincoln County personnel rules that I'm asking you to approve. Would you like me to go through each one? How would you?
I think through each one.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's significant enough.
So the first one is Article 11 under leaves of absence. And this one is actually on page 44 of the document that you have. And basically it has to do with our inclement weather policy. And what the policy said was, notwithstanding other flex rules or language to the contrary, work under these circumstances shall be made up within a reasonable time frame, not to exceed 1 month. My change is to remove the reasonable time frame not to exceed 1 month and put it within the work week. This is actually going with bully wage and hour law. So I mean, we can still have somebody make up the work, you know, if you want to give them overtime over the next few weeks, that is fine. But the wording in here was a little unclear, and just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Any questions on that one?
Nope.
Well, I do have a question about that one.
Okay.
So, and I know there's other ones to discuss this too, but typically we, discuss, then we'd come back the following week and adopt potential personnel changes. And I believe sometimes there's even a wait until those changes take place. Given that it's supposed to snow here tomorrow, and quite heavily, is this something we possibly need to take action on today, this particular one? Okay, we can, if we need to. Okay, well, let's keep going with the other ones.
And I will say that on this one, I mean, I have had a conversation with LCEA, letting them know that, again, that it didn't follow wage and hour laws. So.
Okay. All right, well, let's keep
but-
discussing the other ones and then we can come back and get into that one. Thank you.
You bet. The next one is the second change is in Article 14, use of county equipment. And that one is on page 59 of the document. It has to do with personal use of computer regarding employees and incidental use. And again, this is really just clarifying. I had discussions with IT director Todd Richmond, and this was something that he was really looking for us to change, because we have had folks checking things other than their county email, and that can infect our system. And so that is why this change is being made. And again, the policy said before, incidental use does not include checking your personal email, but just again clarifying this, that any email other than Lincoln County email account. And part of this, again, our some of our union officers have a Gmail account and we just wanted to clarify because I could see how somebody would say that that's not their personal email and really just clarifying that. So any
Okay.
questions on that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the last one is Article 19, which is separation and good standing. And it's actually in the retirement section of that. This is to line up our personnel rules regarding the cash out of sick leave at retirement with our collective bargaining agreements. This got missed at that point in time. In July of 21, we settled a number of collective bargaining contracts. I believe there were 3 of them that we removed the cash out of sick leave for newly hired employees. So not taking it away from those that are already here. And so with this one, again, doing the same thing, making it for all employees that would be hired on or after March 1st of 2023. So again, to put it in relationship with our CBAs.
Mhm.
Any questions about that?
No.
Questions?
Not for me.
No questions.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 changes that I'm asking you to approve. And yeah, I mean, if you decide to wait, I guess till next week, that could work. But again, as you so mentioned, Chair Jacobson, if the weather is a little cold out there.
Wouldn't you know?
Yeah.
Who knows what, and yeah, so.
So this is a question for legal counsel. If we made changes today, do those go into effect immediately or do we have to wait so long?
No, you could do an order amending the rules effective when you sign the order.
Okay. I do feel like with the weather related one, again, because we're, facing some snow, that maybe we should look at adopting that one today. We could adopt the other ones, next week as per our usual
Mhm.
way we do things. But I do feel like given this is a weather policy and we're cleaning stuff up to make them in line with BOLI wage and hour laws, and we're expecting snow tonight and tomorrow, that maybe we should clean that up now.
That makes total sense to me.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. So does someone, I think the consensus then is that we would adopt this one today and then bring the other 2 back for our usual way of doing things. So does someone want to make a motion to adopt the inclement weather policy?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the update to the inclement weather policy today
Maybe as presented by HR Director Collier.
as presented by HR Director David Collier.
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And then we'll bring the other 2 back either on decision action or consent.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
just a thought, emails are getting so hard to decipher sometimes. The fake or the phishing emails are getting so clever. I mean,
Yep.
it's just, it's very easy to click on something that looks real. So I think that's a great adjustment as well. And
Yeah.
makes
agreed.
sense to me.
I will say, it wasn't this year, but I think a year or so ago, as a commissioner, I failed the phishing test that was sit.
Ah.
So
Yeah.
I'm much more clear now.
Happens to the best of us.
All right.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Oregon Coast Community College bond presentation. Welcome.
Morning.
And if you.
Hi,
could-
hi.
Good morning. If you could both state your name for the record.
Don't hurt yourself, Dave. Good morning, commissioners and staff.
Hate it
Don't
when
worry,
that
HR
happens.
is in the space.
Yeah.
So we're good. So good morning, commissioners and staff. It's a pleasure to be back. Thank you very much for inviting us back to be able to spend a little more time. The next 20 minutes. I'm Brigida Reisling. I'm the president of Oregon Coast Community College and a resident of Newport.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Dave Price. I'm the vice president for engagement at Oregon Coast Community College. Pleasure to be here.
All right, so I think we're ready to go. We have a presentation. Oh, I do want to mention while that is coming up that we have hot off the presses, the always awaited Catch the Wave. So you can see what your community education options are for the upcoming months. And there's some on the table back there. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to we're both going to be talking to you about the need for trades education in Lincoln County. And the bond and the building that we'll be talking about are really a vehicle for the delivery on that need in our community. Oh, where's the next here?
The top.
You do it, Dave. All right, there we go. So this is not a new conversation for us. We going back to when I came to the.
Is there any way we could move the? Sure. Okay. Oh, that's right. You've got control. So thank you.
All right. Good. All right. So I joined the college in 2014, and Dave's been here a year longer than I have. And some of the first feedback I received from the community, and it hasn't shifted, is, we love the college and what they do, and your nursing program is amazing. You have aquarium science and all of that. But what about some of these other areas in the trades, and what else, there's a need for this, and what else can the community do? Can the college do for the community and for potential students in those areas? So started looking at the data, what were in fact the various areas and occupational demands and all those types of things that you look for. And there certainly was a case that this is a gap in Lincoln County. It's a gap all up and down the coast, but particularly in Lincoln County. College had an intentional plan around when the college was built and the construction of those facilities, and knew at the time that nursing and aquarium science was on the horizon. But some of these other more industrial technical trades did not go into the design and the building of those facilities. We took that data and brought the way that buildings get constructed for community colleges in Oregon is through the support of local property owners. That is the vehicle. And while occasionally there's opportunities at the state level to seek some portion of matching funds to do that, really those buildings and facilities are owned by the community and they're expected to be paid for by the community. So, but in 2017, there was one of those opportunities at the state level to seek matching funds. You have to document your need very thoroughly and carefully, and also present other things that show that you would in fact, have the resources and the land and the ability to move forward. And we made that case in 2017, and we're placed on the list for $8.14 million in state funds when and if we were able to procure a local match for that. So we knew we weren't ready to go in 2017. We were still in the process of seeking or finalizing independent accreditation for the college. That's an important piece of this. There's things in terms of our overall capacity and bandwidth and sustainability, but also local control of our curriculum. As long as we were not independently accredited, whatever we were doing in terms of our programs, had to fall within the curriculum that was authorized by our contracting college. At the time, it was Portland Community College. So we reached independence we were awarded that by Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities in the spring of 2020. And we were actually contemplating early in 2020 that might be the year that we would go forth with a bond. Then, life changed for us all in the spring of 2020, and this community was going through a lot, as was our students in the college. And so we put those plans on hold. But the case that we're making here is this need is longstanding. The decision to move forward is now, but it's a longstanding need. So our decision, the board's decision, is to present a bond to the voters in May of this year, and to raise 32 million with a 26-cent levy. And Dave is going to go into more detail from the levy and the mechanics of all of that and how it works. But that the outcome of that is to do really three three or four major categories of things. So one is certainly to build the new building and have that specialized space available for that more industrial trades education. We'll talk more about how that will be designed. But it also would be sufficient funding to look at our existing facilities and see what are those places where those facilities can be redesigned to meet the needs, not just of today, but of the future and going forward. And that falls in a couple of areas, but there have been many, many changes in how people learn, especially around the use and the dependence on technology in that. There's also been changes in how we need to think about building design from a, let's say, a health perspective, and just how air moves through the buildings and all those types of things. And then safety, and really for any educational institution, safety of the people that are in our buildings, and that's students and the public and staff, is really vital. And some of the things that we have to think about today were not part of the not part of the landscape in 2004 and 5 when these buildings were being designed. So the intention is to do the new building, but also to look at all of our facilities in terms of those potential enhancements. And while we're in there, then re-engage with the community about what are the local needs across the county around, with a focus on career technical education, but also other things, science labs and the arts and those types of things. So that is the overall intention of this funding. So 32 million from the bond, 8 million from the state. So it'd be a $40 million investment in these facilities that ultimately belong to the people of Lincoln County. Next slide. You're so quick. So this is the architect's rendering of the new facility. And if it looks familiar, that is because this was developed or the first iteration of this in 2017. And just, from the outside, it's a beautiful building and it looks like it fits in with the architecture of the rest of our buildings. Of course, that's wonderful and important, but what's dynamic and different about this building. So pointing to those doors on the back side of the building, those are industrial sized roll-up doors that go up, a couple of stories and will allow for large equipment to come in and out of the building. And then inside the building is flexible space. And when we say flexible in this, we're meaning in a whole lot of different applications. So Dave's going to show you some pictures, but I wanted to say a couple of words. The traditional approach to, if you're going to build a program around, let's say, some career tech field like fire science or welding, if you go into the buildings that were built, 20 years ago, or even 10 or 5 years ago, many of those buildings were done in a really fixed built-in way. So that equipment was built into the walls. And basically, once you made your decision about what programs were going to go in that building, those are the programs that you would be living with for the next many, many years, decades. And while that kind of approach maybe makes sense in an urban setting where you have thousands of students coming and going, and there's a consistent need, for example, for firefighters trained every year, that is not the situation in a rural community of 50,000 population. And so we need flexibility to be able to bring programs in and out. And so we needed to think about this space in a different way. But overall, what this means is that over the periods of the decades, we will be able to do far more programs in this space than anything that we would do in that different kind of approach.
Thanks, Brigitte. Yeah, just to stress this, when we transferred our file to your file, what was not bold became bold. And so I actually bolded the word flexible, but it went a little light there. We do believe that is the point we want to drive home, that these are flexible industrial. This is a flexible industrial space. This building is going to be defined by large open spaces, and flexibility is just built into its DNA. We're calling it the Center for Trades Education. That might change, but the more we use it as a placeholder, the more I like it. Yeah. So, we'll show some photos here, but think movable power drops wherever you want to gather. If you're working on a project with some students in mechatronics or some field, and meanwhile behind you there's someone studying something entirely differently, you can cluster your desks and your equipment and your machinery around you in front of high-tech screen, you could have Bluetooth headsets, you could be following an instructor who's from anywhere. And while someone in the same space is doing something entirely different, just steps away. And as Dan Lara, our VP of Academic Affairs, always stresses, everything in the joint is on wheels. And we've scoured the country for programs, for facilities that we like. This one is on the Front Range in Laramie, Wyoming. You'll note that this entire classroom can sort of roll away. The walls can close and you can exit the classroom and you're already on the floor, where you can work on your diesel mechanics or your welding or what the case may be. And when Dan sees photos like this, he says, just like this, but with boats instead of trucks. And we say that because one of our first programs will be our marine welding certificate. That right now is operating with our partners at the Port of Toledo, where it will continue to operate with some improvements and enhancements if this bond is successful. But in addition to work that's happening with Taft High School students at our small welding lab at Taft High School. That, as you may remember, has some backlog of interested students, and we've only been able to process a dozen a year. And of course, that program launched in February of 2020, so was immediately interrupted as well. So we're eager to make up ground there. But getting back to the facility, there's other examples. This one's a lot closer to home. This is in Redmond. You can see even that welder, which is very similar to the welders that we actually have, not only at our Port of Toledo welding lab, but in front of the building last week at CTE Day, where I think Dr. Reisling and Maya-Lise Tolan had a weld off. This was everything there is on wheels. Everything there is flexible. You can see in the center photograph, the desks, the workstations, the equipment are all on wheels. The power drops from the ceiling wherever you are. You can drag it with you. You can drag ventilation to wherever you go. And of course, there are still places where you can engage with technology in the space as well. This one's even further afield. This is the Flex in Lansing, Michigan. They were so emphatic about making this a flexible industrial space, they made it its name. What I like about this is it speaks to everything we've talked about being able to move and have machinery that goes where the students need it to go. Again, there's not a thing in that photograph that's not on wheels on that sort of polished but simple concrete floor. But there's tech and monitors all around the building. We believe that that is going to afford us the ability to do a number of different things simultaneously. And those different things, those different programs can change with the facility and the county's needs for decades in our planning.
All right, and then a bit more about existing facilities. As you know, we have our space here in Newport, which is our main building, and then we also have the aquarium science facility adjacent to that. And then we have the space in Walport and then in Lincoln City. So looking at all of those areas in terms of safety and technology upgrades, this type is really disconcerting now. That's all right. That's all right.
And in the printout in our books,
I know.
fine. Here. Yeah.
So excuse my pausing here.
Sure.
What are we saying? So there are our existing CTE programs, I say, particularly in the area of health. We know for all of this is a growing area. The demand is very, very high, and we've been trying to keep up with that and expand in the programs that we're doing and where we can. So Lincoln City in the north has become the secondary hub for our nursing education. And that's a commitment to increase access throughout the county so that people aren't experiencing, the barriers. I mean, there are some things that we do need to centralize just due to expense and cost and all of that. But Allied Health in North County. So we had made a decision a while back to relocate. We had an EMT lab located in Walport. And when we looked at just distribution throughout the county, there was more interest in that in the north end of the county. So we moved that up to north, but then we also were successful in obtaining congressionally directed funding of $500,000. That went into the North County space, and we were able to put in a second nursing simulation lab like the one that we have here. And with that additional capacity, we were Dr. Bowman, the director of our nursing program, was able to go to the State Board of Nursing and receive approval to expand from 30 to 40 nurses. So that's, incoming every year in the cohort. And that program, here we sit, and there's 250 completed nurses out there because people had the foresight, 15 years ago to say, we need a nursing program. So we intend to do those same types of things. We've already started an education program that is for both K through 12, but also early childhood education and business, and then some of these trades areas. So it's that futuristic thinking. There's also interest in, as you probably know, the college has been a partner with countywide emergency planning. We're an evacuation site that, during the Otis fires, and so we always try to stay in good communication around that. And there's interest in, can we leverage some of this opportunity here to expand capacity in that in terms of, buildings and backup generators and radio access and those, variety of things. We will really need to engage in local community and get input, provided that we're successful in this funding. Then that next phase would be, we have a lot of we have the design elements around the building, but the second phase on the current facilities is, deserving of engagement with Walport and South County and North, and looking at how can we make the best possible use of those funds.
Okay, I think you covered that too.
Yeah.
Well, refer to your books there,
Yeah.
commissioners. So timing, why May 23? So our current bonds that Dr. Reisling touched on at the beginning, that built the beautiful buildings we're in today, that were approved in May of 2004, they will expire in or mature and go away on June 30th of 2025. And so there is but as Dr. Reisling said, we just believe that the need is real. The need has been real since 2017. And that's the most pressing concern that sort of keeps us up when we think about this and when we're going to be able to move. And yes, we were impacted by the delays forced by getting independent accreditation and then the pandemic. But there is also this $8 million match, this $8.14 million that there is no guarantee it will be there in the next cycle or the cycle after that. There's no guarantee it won't, but anyone in Salem will tell you that is available now. And we feel like we owe it to the county to, if there's an opportunity to have $8 million match, to bring it to the county in this way. It does also matter to us that the school district isn't going forth with any major bond measures this term, so that we're trying to minimize confusion. People saying, wait, I thought the schools program was a CTE thing and not a high school or what have you. So we think that that's helpful to keep things clear. And again, the need for trades education is clear. And on the timing point, I should like to point out that when we're done here, Dr. Reisling and I are going to wander down the hall, find the county clerk, and file our ballot title. And so if you need me to say vote yes for this bond, ask today, because in about an hour I can't say that. And so our period of advocacy will end, and I'm just going to jump and mention that we're going to hand over the keys to this drive to our political action committee. And we are super excited that Dr. Reisling asked Dr. Patrick O'Connor, 20-year plus president of Oregon Coast Community College, and he volunteered to co-chair the committee with Patrick Alexander from Oregon Coast Today. And also David Bigelow is our treasurer. David Bigelow, the former CEO of the Samaritan Pacific Communities Hospital. We are just super excited to have such invested in the community individuals who are willing to roll up their sleeves. They've already got a long list of appearances booked, we couldn't be more thankful that they've stepped up the way they have. So we'll talk a little bit here about the levy. Feel free to interrupt with any questions. Back in 2004, the voters approved 34 cents per thousand. That was the levy. That is what built our buildings. I should point out those buildings were built on time and under budget. And that is a credit to Dr. O'Connor, to the Board of Education. some of whom are still on the Board of Education today. Jeff Ouderkirk, for example, has never left the board since we founded it in 87. Over time, in the 20 years since that levy was first brought about, as property values have increased, we've been able to maintain the bond payments in such a way that as the property values have increased, the levy has decreased. And so we're down to, we think, one of our lowest points of the 20-year period. It could be 21 cents is the projected levy for this year. And so we are pleased that we never went to that 34-cent cap. That cap is, you define the things you want to do with your bond, and the voters say, okay, you can tax me up to 34 cents. Even in the very first year, we came in at something like 32.5 and never approached 34 cents. That is a history that we're proud of. So the new levy would be 26 cents per thousand. Now, it's worth noting and underscoring that is not on top of the 21 cents of the current bond. We're going to be basically having two bonds that overlap for a period of 2 years, but that's one levy. So that one levy is 26 cents. And it's also worth noting that is two 20-year bonds that overlap for 2 years. So we're getting two 20-year bonds if this is approved by voters over the span of 38 years. That is a nickel 5 cents per thousand of assessed, worth underscoring, assessed valuation to valuation of homes. I believe the average sale price in Lincoln County of a home last year was about $588,000. The median assessed value is something like $190,000, according to the county clerk's office. They provided our PAC that information last week. So nickel on even the sales price of $600,000 of a home that would be assessed at $600,000 would be $30 per year. Pardon me. And so for a home that is assessed as half of homes are under $200,000 right now, that would be $10 a year. That is not something that we mean to say $10 a year is insignificant. No property tax is insignificant. We live in Oregon. But we feel like this is the kind of project that is a once in a generation opportunity. I think it's going to benefit each and every person who lives and resides in Lincoln County, renters and homeowners alike. Any one of us who needs to call someone in the trades to get something done, and not to mention all of us who can be educated in this facility. We've talked a little bit about the overlapping, and I think that's as far as we need to get. And Dr. Reising, was there anything else you'd like to add about our political action committee?
Just to say, so pleased that, that Pat O'Connor, who has, the longest history with this community college, is pleased to join in this effort. And I think it just speaks to that continuity of vision and leadership. And we all know, people in leadership positions come and go, but holding on to that vision and really having intentionality about where you're going is vital and critical. And the other place I would say that really works to the advantage of Lincoln County is the close alliance between the school district and the community college. Next week, we've got our annual joint boards meeting. We plan together around lots of things, including investments in career technical education. And that's where the other pieces to make this work is looking at staffing and how do you keep the programs going in the buildings when they're built. And we have that kind of partnership with the school district, and we have that partnership. Historically, those partnerships with industry. Our nursing program is successful because the health districts and Samaritan Hospital have made a commitment to support those programs. We're able to do welding out at Port of Toledo because the port, has skin in that game, and as does the Workforce Investment Board and the school district. So that's the type of community that we are lucky to live in, those kinds of collaborations. And it's how a small community like Lincoln County can have these kinds of programs. So I'm just very pleased to be part of this effort, and will wear my yes button for the 81 days till the election.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, questions, Commissioner Hall? Remembered your name this time. Comments?
Nothing off the top of my head. I think this is very good. I mean, it's implicit, but I don't think you said it just to let people know this building will be cited as part of the current Newport campus complex.
Yes.
On land we already own. Yes. The
Okay.
community already owns.
Okay.
Commissioner Miller? Questions?
No, I don't. Well, yeah, I guess maybe one question in regard to the Port of Toledo. Any anticipated improvements or changes there? I've yet to visit that welding program.
You
in
haven't
person.
visited the
No.
port? Oh, you really should. It's
Okay.
impressive. And you recently met with the port.
Yes, with one of the commissioners and port
Mhm.
leadership. So they are, they do want to expand their training facility and will, the current one is pretty limited. As we say, there's 12 welding booths in there.
Mhm.
And when we announced that we were doing this, it was, I don't know, 200 people expressing interest in that program, and it really hasn't waned. So, so yes, they have some thoughts around expansion. And we believe that that a model that has some distributed access to welding. While on a much larger scale, I came from Portland Community College, where we had a very, very robust welding program that, on a larger scale, but we had the hub and, main access to welding courses at the campus. But at Swan Island, which is out in the Port of Portland, very robust program that was intended to be a 1 year, a 1 year thing for some new employees coming and needing training. And that's still going strong, I think, 12 years later. So that model where students have the opportunity to be in a academics or a skills lab, but then also out at an actual work site is pretty powerful.
Yeah. Just a few more comments, Madam Chair. I'm so grateful for Oregon Coast Community College and my professional development. Administrator Johnson and I were at the city of Toledo last week, hearing similar presentation from Chris Rogers. He did very well. Kind of got my juices flowing, and I downloaded the book Shop as Soulcraft. I believe that book was written in 2009, and it really is an evaluation of the trades. And it's almost as if this was seen that, trades would really be re-emphasized, and it's just wonderful. Even the foreword, I think, encapsulates the need for this. My wife out at the Siletz Clinic benefits greatly from the nurses that come from your program. So this is just really exciting, and kind of a question for you, but it seems to me like the Marine Studies building kind of has some design elements. Is that true in that workspace?
Well,
I mean,
one of the things that's worth noting about the Marine Studies
Yeah.
building is we've spoken with Mark Farley about this and Dr. Reisling has already talked about our relationship with the school district. And when it comes time to outfit the equipment in this facility and its actual guts, we're going to work very hard with those partners to make sure that we're not duplicating, except for those areas where we have to duplicate.
Yeah.
And we are instead filling that pathway from K-12 through Oregon Coast Community College and the Center for Trades Education to ultimately places like the amazing Innovation Lab at the new Hatfield Marine Studies Initiative.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add, the Innovation Lab I wouldn't say trade specific. It's more about, as you're doing scientific research in the ocean, and you need to put your equipment on something that goes to the bottom of the ocean. There isn't like a scientific Amazon, that you go to and order your thing that your equipment can go on. You have to build that. You have to fabricate that. And so that's where the Innovation Lab came in, is that scientists are trained to be scientists, not necessarily to be innovators and create the stuff they need. So there's a lot of specialized equipment in science and in marine science that has to be built by somebody. And oftentimes, kind of before the Innovation Lab, it was people like going down the grocery store aisle and Fred Meyer's and figuring out how they could make something out of, kitchen items or whatever. And so this was a space to train new scientists on how to do that innovation so that they can build better scientific platforms.
Yeah.
So I think there's certainly a connection there, but it's not necessarily for trades. It's to help scientists better create tools.
Yeah.
What they're doing.
Madam
And-
Chair, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt,
Fascinating.
but I had another question when you.
Yeah, just one last thing. So with this flexible space, say 3D printing in a certain sector of industry, you know, is coming up. I mean, you could just bring it in. I mean, it looks like a semi can roll in
Yeah.
the building too, right? So
Mhm.
it's just that multiple options.
Yeah.
Creates for
Yeah.
you.
You should attend our 3D printing class in September.
Well, you,
Yeah.
what were you printing? Weren't you printing?
We were printing face shields for the first responders early on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fascinating. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Hall?
Another question. Say the voters approve this, and I realize there's a ton of variables involved, but what would be the target, say, for groundbreaking and then actually having this building up and running and operational, or do you have that yet?
Voter approval in May would likely result in groundbreaking sometime between the end of 23 and let's say the summer of 24. And because it's a new building and, you know, we have the land, we've already we have, you know, been working with City of Newport, which is within their jurisdiction, and we've completed environmental impact, portion, not 100%, but portions of that. So I'd say things are teed up pretty well in terms of that. Then, you know, the enhancements to the existing facilities, that will be a longer process. Those are occupied facilities, and we also need to do the due diligence, community engagement. So that would be staggered out probably a number of years following on that. And summers are big for us in terms of, you know, the buildings aren't used to the extent that they're used during the year. But we're anxious to get started and have done everything
That's
we
great.
can to really be ready.
Well, I have a couple of questions. So the cost match, the $8 million coming from the state that you're required to get cost match for, is that cost match required to come from voters? You'd kind of mentioned that it needed to be from the public, but is it required to come from voters?
No, it is not. So another approach to that would be, fundraising campaigns. You'd be, you know, going through foundations, that type of thing. It's a heavy ask for a small foundation that, you know, our foundation, we have a wonderful foundation. They focus on student scholarships, and they're able to raise and disperse between 80 and 100,000 per year in direct student aid, which is amazing. But an $8 million fundraising campaign is outside of that.
Well, it would be more than 8 because you'd have to match the 32, right? Wouldn't that be?
The match, so the match for the state is a dollar for dollar match. So the state contribution, and that's their Article 11G bonding for 8.124 million. You need to raise that specific amount locally. But that would not get us all the way in the building, and it would not allow us to address the existing facilities and the other issues that we're talking about.
So of the money that would come in through taxpayers, 8 million of that would be cost match. The rest would not be. So the 8
Correct.
mil, okay, all right, I understand that. So I guess another question I have is, it sounds like most of this is, most of this funding is for capital construction. So how are you paying for the actual programming, or is staff and programming coming out of this money as well?
So staff, so bond funds by law are for assets that will be capitalized. So that is physical, tangible things. Though the one sort of, within that, buildings need to get built, right? So people are involved in the building of the buildings and all that, but those would all be considered capital costs that are fundable through that. So on the programming side, we have existing sort of the economy of scales thing. So we have some existing infrastructure that needs to exist at a community college regardless of the size and the number of students, right? You have a facilities manager and you have a registrar and so we have capacity within that. As far as the direct programming costs, we pay for those things in the same way that we've been able to bring up welding and nursing and business and all of that. It's a little bit like starting some new small businesses. It is typically about 3 years from when we start the program to when there's sufficient enrollment to sustain the program. And we have a great history in terms of looking for funding sources for that. So that's where we go for the grants, the foundations, those types of things, industry support. We were able to start teacher education with a grant from Meyer Memorial Trust and contributions from the school district, and also the small amounts that we have at the college for what we call, strategic investment. So, but we've used that model successfully. It's how welding got started. And nursing, aquarium science was started with the National Science Foundation grant. So we're very bullish on our opportunities in terms of this because of our history in doing that and the great partners that we have. We're selective about where we go for grants. They need to align with our strategic purpose and what we're trying to accomplish, but we have a good success rate.
Okay,
Great.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Buildings
Yeah.
are great, but buildings don't
Yeah.
build programs.
Right, yeah,
now.
yeah, we were,
So-
I'm sorry, but just exciting. So we're funded now through a National Science Foundation planning grant around looking at what types of things can be added on to our aquarium science program. And those planning grants are when they are working with you. So 3 of our staff went to their conference on this in New Orleans last month to work with us on a successful application to expand not capacity, capacity and additional areas adjacent to aquarium science. So those are the types of things that we're looking at. There's also the things that we're doing that are in the marine technology sector. There's a tremendous amount of work in this community
Mhm.
around ocean innovation and all of that. And the college has been an integral partner in that. So and I was testifying in front of the legislature, the Oregon legislature yesterday for a bill around investment in marine education.
Awesome.
And then my last question is, the Commissioner Hall, remembered your name again. Asked, about what happens if you get this? I guess my question is, what happens if you don't? I mean, you have another bond that would expire and then not be replaced. So besides just not getting all the, awesome things you talked about, would there be cuts to existing programs or services because one bond would expire and the one wouldn't be there? Yeah.
So if it doesn't pass, the buildings don't get built, the building doesn't get built, and those improvements that we intend to make across the facilities would occur as funds are available over a much longer period of time. So, but there would not be, this is about building capacity of serving the students that we're not serving currently.
Mhm.
So,
Can-
but yeah,
I would also say, Commissioner Jacobson, that if this doesn't pass, we'll see you next November or next May. It took 3 terms, 3 attempts to build the buildings that the voters approved in 2004. We don't believe this is an easy lift. We believe it's the right thing to do, and we believe the need's not going anywhere. So if the voters, for whatever reason, decide that this is not the year, we'll respect that, but we'll be back. And I can say that to your point about will existing programs end, the current bond payments don't fund our existing programs. We're just paying debt service we're paying our mortgage essentially if it was a house. And yes, we have 2 years. So we have 4 elections that we could come back at you between now and the time that the bonds expire. And even if they do, and there's a gap between bonds that built the current buildings and the bond that might meet the trades education needs of Lincoln County, so be it. But it would be really nice and clean if we could do it, right at that cutoff. But who knows if that's possible? But we believe the need is real. And with every presentation, we'll make the fonts a little better on your presentation. give us a couple more election cycles and we'll really nail it. But no, we anticipate getting this done now. We think it's needed now, and
Yeah.
that's why
Thank
we're
you.
here.
And the last thing I wanted to say, sort of a side note, is just, gosh, within the last 3 or 4 months, I had connected our HHS Health and Human Services Director, Jane Romero, to the community college, because we are struggling with mental health workers and case managers. And I was on a call just in the last week, and one of our current employees is currently using that newly created pathway to further her career and eventually become a case manager. So
Wonderful.
just a big thank you. And that was just really fast that we were able to, find a path working together to have people that were maybe already in, mental health work, but aren't providers or aren't case managers, to kind of find a path for them to move up into higher employment. So thank you.
Great questions.
Okay, so does the board want to come back next week and discuss possibly as a board supporting this? Do we want to do that as individuals? I say next week because typically we discuss 1 week and come back the following week. That's kind of how we normally do things. Do we want to come back and discuss as a group supporting this, or do we want to do that individually?
I'm open to both.
Me too.
Okay. All right, so you want to bring back for potential decision action next week?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Sounds good.
all right. We will bring it back for decision and action
Yeah.
next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for
you for the
all your
presentation.
time last week and again now. Thanks.
All right, yeah, it's second floor.
Yeah. Yep.
To your right, yeah.
Upstairs.
All right, thank you. Next up is commissioner reports, and I'm actually going, oh no, sorry. County Administrator Johnson. Next up is Administrator Johnson's report about a change in Board of Commissioner meeting frequency.
Commissioners,
Yes.
good morning.
Morning, Sam.
Mutluckus and Parkas apparently are in the discussion for tomorrow. That's interesting on the Oregon coast. Yeah. This deals with adopting the direction of the board to meet the first and third Wednesdays of the month, beginning March of this year. There are identified no negative fiscal or budgetary impacts created by this. However, county administrative staff will be reviewing staff time saved in preparation of meetings to improve both internal and external customer service as that occurs, and we'll keep you up to date on those metrics. The reason for your direction on this, as conveyed, has been looking at preparation and presentation of board meetings. You identified that the opportunity to go to 2 times a month would increase efficiency of the organization, optimizing staff time, and continuing to support citizen input. As such, you made that subsequent recommendation of the first and third. In examining the times presented in the exhibit of your staff report, moving forward, you identified that just because you were not going to meet 4 times a month, that those other meeting dates would not be used in lieu of a commission meeting for workshops. And we have 2 workshops coming your way shortly. One on the doing a briefing for you and kind of training on the new budget software that you approved. And then, of course, also a directive to me on the draft work program for implementation and construction of the master plan on the commons, as just examples of how those other dates, times can be used. So as such, there really isn't any terms on policy impacts. And that decision is now in your hands of how you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Administrator Johnson. I am actually really excited that we are discussing this. I think as our people that have, follow along each week, our meetings have been relatively short on time. Today, we're about an hour, which is actually a little long for us. It takes an incredible amount of staff time every week to make the agenda, put out the public notice, create minutes, run the actual meeting. And so I think from an efficiency and, moving stuff together, does mean our meetings will potentially be a little bit longer than 15, 20 minutes, which is what it's been averaging. But I think that's okay. So I'm excited about this. And I also am excited that, I now have 2 commissioners with kids in the school district and several other staff members as well. There's certain times, at least for me in the past, that have been really problematic, like spring break and Christmas break and that kind of stuff. And the schedule means that there's less kind of personal stress around those times when there's no school in session. So I think this is a great idea. And I think the idea of when needed, using if we have a 5th week in the month instead of just the 1st and 3rd for BOC meetings, so we have a 5th week and it doesn't, coincide with Christmas or something. Using those for workshops, I think is a great idea. So any other comments?
Well, I would add that, that's been my experience as well. There are just opportunities sometimes we say, well, a lot of times that we say no to. Because we've got our Wednesday meeting. I think that'll give us flexibility. Sometimes those opportunities are participating in, important committees. So that's going to absolutely give us more flexibility to do that. And, with our new agenda software coming as well, the transparency, the access to these meetings, our meetings will fundamentally be longer. But the public will have a easier time tracking us when we are presenting. So I think that's something that's gonna make those longer meetings easier to digest and information will be easier to find. So I think, yeah, we're really creating some efficiencies with that as well. Because yes, it is time consuming just to do the mechanics. In the few instances that we've not had meetings, it's like, wow, I can do other stuff. It's amazing, right? So I think this is going to be good for us. I think it's going to be good for our team.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you both. I find every now and then somebody thinks these meetings are all that we do. And I'd say, no, it's more like the 10% of the iceberg that's above the surface of the water. I was thinking back when this idea first surfaced, I've been hanging around this building in one role or another since 1987. And in that entire time, the commission meetings have always been weekly, but that doesn't mean they always have to be. And, most of our city councils either meet twice a month or once a month. I know of other counties that are meeting on a twice a month schedule. Back in 1987, the internet technically existed, but it wasn't the tool that it is today. And so we're able to move documents for review and, kind of do the preliminary business leading up to our formal business meeting a lot more efficiently than we did then. And so I think for the public, for staff, for us, it should be a win-win all the way around.
And if it doesn't work, we can always change it back.
That's right.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, well, I feel like we have consensus. I don't know that we need a formal vote. Can we just have a consensus to
Yeah, it's
go with the schedule?
just
as
listed
presented
as a report.
here? Okay,
Minimum.
Yeah.
So it's
All right.
administrative.
Great,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Administrator
Okay.
Johnson.
all right, moving on to commissioner reports. I'm actually just gonna start with Commissioner Hall. I think,
Okay.
You can give us an update on the warming shelter activities going on this week.
Sure. People may remember that a few weeks ago, we committed $30,000 to Coastal Support Services in Lincoln City, $30,000 to Grace Winds Haven in Newport to provide motel rooms to unhoused people in severe weather conditions, and additionally 20,000 to help the Odds Presbyterian Church get its Don's Place shelter up and going. And with the moteling, so far from what I've been able to determine, things have been going well, that as many as 50 rooms a night being utilized in Newport, for example, and good utilization in Lincoln City as well. But now we've got a couple of wild cards we're dealing with this weekend. I was contacted by a Grace Winds volunteer several days ago who said they were finding the ability to book rooms in Newport for this week, all but drying up due to the first Seafood and Wine Festival in 3 years. And now, as was alluded to earlier in this morning, we've got another factor in the mix, and looks like we're getting our worst blast of winter just as we're in the tail end of winter. I'm looking at my phone right now, and I know the forecasts have been a bit over the map, but like, for instance, tonight, a low of 30, tomorrow, high of 39, low of 24, high of 44, low of 24. So Grace Winds was able to secure the use of St. Stephen's Episcopal Church. That's the red wooden church on 9th and Herbert Streets in the center of Newport for use as an emergency shelter, at least through Saturday night. And they had their first opening 7 o'clock last night. They're providing dinner and breakfast, and then folks have to clean up and clear out by 7 the next morning. About 30 people turned out last night. They felt it went very smoothly, no problems at all. They figured the building could comfortably house as many as 60 people, and we did have a Zoom conference Monday afternoon. Basically, we've got County Health and Human Services, Transit, Sheriff, Community Corrections Administration, and BOC all looped in. And so now I believe the discussion will shift towards kind of what a plan B for this weekend might look like if we do have a problem with availability of rooms. Of course, if the winter weather gets bad enough, maybe some of those folks who are coming over for the festival will have second chances. So I guess this is a situation where we just need to be constantly monitoring the situation and be flexible. Cinda Bruce, our transit director, said if it did end up one of the alternatives we've talked about is booking extra rooms in Lincoln City, transporting people there and back, that she could organize special bus runs on relatively short notice. So that's where things stand as of the moment.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hall.
Any
I did have a forest, fisheries and farm meeting last night in Toledo where a ginormous amount of pizza was accidentally ordered, more than we actually needed. So I did run the leftovers over to the warming shelter last
great.
night, and people seem to be doing pretty good and seem to be
Good.
running smoothly. So
Good.
thanks for that. Anything else to report?
Not for me.
Okay, Commissioner Miller?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Hall. Yeah, I was at County College last weekend, and I have to admit I was a little bit reluctant knowing that I've attended this in 2015, but Association of Counties, now that I'm looking at their services to us through the lens of a commissioner, really found a lot of value in that experience. I ran into both of our state representatives. A lot of focus was on public works, which was interesting. We had a tour of Marion County. So good experience, and I'm trying to cram it all into my brain. Hoping to attend some more sessions. I think it's a good thing for me to do. Testified Monday morning for the Oregon Coast Trail, and I'm hopeful that that funding will continue and we can complete the Oregon Coast Trail. So, and then I just have to say, thinking about all these drop downs and things on wheels, it's got my gears turning about the county commons, and wondering what kind of flexible space, eventually will be a part of that. So I think it's interesting to think about what we might watch them do, look at the Marine Studies Initiative and what we might do there.
I'm always a fan of a rolling garage door.
Well, and I saw that
I just brought
whiteboard,
it up.
that giant whiteboard, and I thought, oh, Katie wants that.
I do.
But thank you.
Thanks, yeah. Well, reports for me, I just wanted to recognize three young people. We all got a little invite from all of them, and this is Cooper Fitch, Elia Jones, and Wolfgang Gromes, I think is how you say their last name, and they all were getting their Eagle Scout honor here, I think coming up, or I think it was I think it was February 19th. So just wanted to tell them congratulations, and we did send them a signed letter from all three of us congratulating them as well, but just wanted to recognize them at our public meeting as well. I am not an Eagle Scout and don't really know anyone who is, but talking to other people, it's a really big deal. It's very hard to get, it's very challenging, so just wanted to say congratulations to all of them. So,
Yeah, I read online that only about 4% of the people, excuse me, involved with scouting earn the Eagle Scout designation. So you're absolutely right. It is a rare and coveted thing that comes after a lot of hard work.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
last night at Sheriff Citizens Academy, it was search and rescue presentation.
Mhm.
Those Eagle Scouts probably know how to use a compass and will likely not be getting lost in the woods. So, I mean, it's kind of a, interesting to think about that as a skill, and it's very cool. Very cool that they're
well,
Mhm.
congratulations to them.
Yep.
All right, next up is public comment. First, we'll just review our Smart Sheet form. Smart Sheet form is written public comment that we've received through the week. Okay, there we go. So we just kind of scroll through and see what we have received. Commissioners received these before the meeting as well, and they're also on our website. Okay. Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner.
So next up, we'll see if we have any public comment virtually. So if you are virtually attending our meeting and would like to provide public comment, go ahead and raise your virtual hand. And I don't see anybody. So now we'll take in-person public comment. So give us the public comment list. Okay, and public comment is 3 minutes, and Commissioner Hall is my timekeeper.
Okay.
Boy, I'm really a chatty Cathy, I see. So I was really
And if you could identify yourself for the record. please.
yes, Monica Kirk. And I liked your idea or the visual, Casey, with all these ideas come down, you're kind of putting them together. That's how I felt about this meeting. Thumbs up from this voter for the bond issue. Also thumbs up for, although I didn't think it was a good idea, for going to biweekly meetings. That makes a lot of sense. And Eagle Scouts, my nephew, Michael Kirk, is an Eagle Scout. And it is a big deal, a real big deal. And then today about short-term rentals, what I just wanted to say is that all of us have invested a lot in the success of the 523 enforcement. We're all relying on the property managers and the owners to call out the bad apples, on the county to have and I like that the county has, that the three offices are working together now, the sheriff and planning and legal. On their development of policies, written policies, I hope. And you can count on 15 neighborhoods to kind of track what's going on. But there is a kind of another appeal for being transparent and giving at least and making sure the county knows, or that your voters know that that we're okay with 523 and the caps. So I think that's in everyone's interest. And just for one example, I did just looking at the internet, looking at Nextdoor, noticed that there was an ad for a Shifting Sands yurt as a short-term rental. There were lots of endorsements, and then I didn't find Shifting Sands on our license list. So I reported it on MuniRevs and asked for kind of some feedback. And I'll just be interested in seeing, kind of what the policy is when you get reports about unlicensed facilities operating as short-term rentals. And one thing I'd like to do after the meeting is stop by legal counsel's office and kind of check and see if there are written policies yet.
I'm sure those would be confidential with my advice. So the sheriff's office licensing facility is who enforces that. So it's their policies. I just provide legal advice to
Oh, okay.
departments.
So legal does write off. So, I mean, concur, on the written policies.
So
I mean,
the sheriff's office
sorry.
conducts enforcement. I
Okay.
advise departments and offices. I don't
Okay.
advise non-clients. I would only advise my own clients.
oh, okay. Well, this is just like EPA where I used to work. The federal government always made policies, rules, regulations available for the public. That was all I was kind of
Okay.
asking about.
We are at
Thank you.
time. I am gonna say though, because we're trying to be more efficient as a group. So could I maybe task, I'm just gonna pick on you, Commissioner Miller. Can you maybe follow up with the sheriff's office and maybe legal counsel or whoever's bailiwick this is and kind of finds out on the back end what does happen to reports of unlicensed BRDs? I actually haven't seen the back end of that as well. So I'm gonna follow up. I think that would be helpful. And then all three of us are not all three following up. It gets very confusing for staff sometimes. So. Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? No? All right. We're going to go ahead and adjourn our meeting then. Our next Board of Commissioners meeting is Wednesday, March 1 at 10 a.m. And just a reminder that we will be switching in March to the first and third Wednesdays for our Board of Commissioners meeting. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.